Hey, what's up everybody? In today's video, I'm going to be going over 7 habits that wealthy people demonstrate on a regular basis and that they use to acquire and keep their wealth. So please subscribe, hit the thumbs up button. All right, let's get into it. All right, so the first habit is that most wealthy people buy assets rather than buying liabilities. I mean, we all have to buy liabilities at some point in time just to get through life, but most wealthy people make a concerted effort to buy assets, way more assets than liabilities in their life. And that's how they get to the point where they're wealthy enough to where they can splurge on a vacation or an expensive tuition for their kids at a private school. And a lot of people don't know the difference between an asset and a liability. And this concept comes from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great book, and I highly recommend that you read it if you hadn't. But an asset is something that over time will generate you more money. So a stock is a great example of an asset, because when you buy a stock, let's say you buy Tesla or something like that, or Apple, a single stock, and you put $10,000 in it, well, it's going to probably make you more money because the price of that stock is going to increase over time. So that is going to add to your wealth, and it's going to add to your net worth. Another good example of an asset is real estate. Real estate has demonstrated that it goes up over time. It might have some dips and falls like any other market, like the stock market, but over time, especially if you buy at the right time, real estate is also a good investment and a good example of an asset. So what you want to do if you want to be wealthy is you want to focus on buying assets and not liabilities. So you want to buy stocks, you want to buy, if you don't want to buy individual stocks, you want to buy into an index fund like VTI or VTSAX or the equivalents over at TD and Schwab. So you want to buy those index funds if you don't want to buy single stocks like Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, things like that. Now, a liability. So a liability is something that depreciates in value over time. The best example of a liability is probably a car. The studies have shown that when you drive a new car off the lot, it'll lose 25% of its value right then and there. And that's probably a conservative number. So a car, going out and buying a $50,000 car, especially if you're only making like $30,000 or $40,000 a year, and you buy it on credit and you have an interest rate of like 5-10% on it, that is going to decrease your net worth over time, especially if you don't get a bump up in pay. So if you go out and you buy a $50,000 car and you drive it off the lot and it depreciates right then and there, it's going to depreciate by like $15,000 or $20,000 right then and there. Clothes are another example of a liability because it can't do anything for you. When you go and buy a new suit, you spend $1,000 on a new suit or $500 on a pair of shoes or something like that. You're never going to get that money back. It's going to immediately depreciate in value. You might be able to sell the shoes for $200. You spent $500, so you've lost $300. So what ends up happening is wealthy people, they make these decisions to buy assets rather than liabilities over a long period of time, and it slowly increases their net worth. So what you want to do is follow the example of the wealthy and buy assets, buy stocks, bonds, index funds, other investments that appreciate in value over time, rather than spending a lot of time buying liabilities like clothes, shoes, expensive cars, and things that depreciate in value or don't add to your net worth, but rather take away from your net worth. Okay, the second habit of wealthy people is that they read, and they read a lot. You can take someone like Bill Gates, you can look him up on Google, and you'll find out that Bill Gates reads anywhere from 50 to 100 books a year. So 50 books a year, that equals out to around one book a week. And that takes a lot of time, and that's a lot of time reading. That's something I try to do as well. I read 53 books, 53, 54 books in 2020, and I have plans to do the same here in 2021 because I want to get my mind to where it needs to be and continuously improve. The reason that reading is so important and why it's an instrumental and integral part of helping someone become more wealthy, depending on what you read, is because all of us come into this world as kind of a blank slate, and we're taught things when we're kids. Some of the stuff might be good, some might not be. But once you start getting older, the best way to learn new concepts, and really the only way to learn new concepts, is to read or listen to somebody that knows more about a subject than you. So if you want to learn about money, you want to learn a new skill, you want to learn anything, literally the only way to do that is to read. And that's why reading is so important. You can also watch videos, you can listen to podcasts, because there's a lot more information out now than there was 20 years ago. But reading is a staple, and I can guarantee you most of the wealthiest people in the world, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, they all read, and they all read quite often. There are proponents for reading for 30 minutes to an hour a day, one book a week, and you can survey basically any other successful and wealthy person, and you will find out that I'd say 90% of them read on a daily basis, and they make reading a part of their daily ritual. And so that habit is something that you can incorporate in your life today. You can start reading, you can pick up a book. It's never been easier. There's a bunch of free audiobooks on YouTube you can listen to about different subjects. So I started reading a book a week a couple years ago, and I can tell you that my life has changed tremendously, and my net worth has increased as a result of reading things that I needed to read and stuff that I was interested in to make me a better person and more knowledgeable, and then putting those concepts and putting what I read into action. All right, the third habit of wealthy people is that they make an effort to pay and invest in themselves first before they pay anybody else. So before they pay the electricity, before they pay the rent, before they pay anybody, they make sure that they put money aside for themselves first. And I know you may be wondering, well, you should pay your rent and your bills first and all that. Yeah, you should pay those, but you should always pay yourself first, because the tendency is that life starts getting in the way. You start getting all these obligations, and then you forget to pay yourself. But there's different ways that you can ensure that you pay yourself without even thinking about it. But the best way to do that is to automate your savings, is to automate your payments. And the way that I do that is in my retirement account. I have two retirement accounts. One is a 401k type account that we have in the military, and the other one that I have is a Roth IRA. And what I do with the Roth IRA and with the TSP account is I just automate the savings every month. So I put a percentage of what I'm going to save, I input that into both of those accounts, into my TSP account, and then what happens is when I get paid, that money is already siphoned off into my TSP account. So I never even know. All I need to do is take 5 seconds to get on the website and set up the automated savings, and it's done. So that's how I pay myself first. I also have several brokerage accounts where I automate a certain amount of money to come out of my bank account every week, and they all go out to these different brokerage accounts that I have with M1, Robinhood. M1 and Robinhood are my main ones, and also I have Acorns as well. So you can eliminate having to think about it. You can eliminate having to go through the steps of siphoning off money to your savings and to your brokerage account by just setting up an automated process. So that's how I literally pay myself first. And then the money that I have after that, I've formulated a budget, so I know that I'm going to have enough money for the rent, the electricity, and all the other bills that we have in our household. And so all those get paid second. So if you want to become wealthy and you want to get to that point, you want to pay yourself first. Automate your savings and pay yourself first. All right, habit number 4 is that wealthy people are very good at delaying gratification. So, an example of delayed gratification is you have a goal, you're trying to save up, you're trying to get your net worth to this amount, or maybe you're saving to buy a new house for a down payment on a new house or something like that. And you're walking through the store and you see a pair of shoes or a jacket that you want. And you say to yourself, well, if I saved this money and invested it instead of buying the jacket, then I would be able to get closer to my goal of putting a down payment on a house or paying cash for this house instead of taking out a mortgage and a loan. So that's an example of delayed gratification, is postponing buying something in the short term because you have the long-term goal in mind. So it's uncomfortable up front. You're denying yourself up front, but then you know that that by denying yourself up front, you're giving yourself a much greater gift in the future. So you ask yourself that question: would you rather have the new jacket, or would you rather have the house that you paid cash for and didn't have to do a mortgage in the next 2 or 3 years after you're done saving? So that's an example of delayed gratification, and that's something that in order to achieve a wealthy status, you have to be able to do that over and over again for a long period of time. Now, there may be times where you do splurge on something, and that is fine. I've definitely done that before, and I'm sure that every other wealthy person in the world has at certain times splurged, but they don't make a habit of it. They make a habit 80 to 90% of the time of delaying the gratification so that they can have something better in the future. So habit number 4 is practicing delayed gratification. It's a really important habit to learn. Habit number 5, and this is a super important habit, is that wealthy people avoid high interest debt at all costs. And I have personal experience with this when I made a terrible decision to open a business with an unsecured loan instead of going through the process of getting a small business loan. It was one of the worst financial decisions I've ever made, and I learned a lot from it, and I can tell you that I will never do something like that again. What high interest unsecured loans are basically credit cards, and an unsecured loan means that there's no asset to back the loan with. And so what that is going to result in is you're going to get a higher interest rate, because say if you buy a house or a car, the interest rate will be lower, because if you don't pay the car note or you don't pay the house note or the mortgage, then the bank or whoever lends you the money can either repossess the car or they can take the house back over. With credit card debt or unsecured loans or personal loans, there is no collateral, which means that if you don't start paying, if you fall back on your payments and you start defaulting on your credit card payments or your personal loan payments, there's nothing for the creditor to be able to take in place of the loan not being paid. So that's why the interest is so high, because it's riskier for the creditor who's lending you money. What you want to do in situations like this in order to preserve your wealth and keep building is you have to avoid credit card debt and high interest debt. I can't stress this enough. A lot of credit cards have rates of between 15 and 30%. And that is just absolutely insane. But they have to have those rates that high because people default on their payments quite often, and there's nothing that they can take from them in order to satisfy what they would have gotten. So there's no collateral there. High interest credit card debt and high interest personal loan debt will absolutely decimate your net worth. It will kill your net worth if you have even one credit card that you've maxed out and that you're paying the minimum payments on. It is going to set you back so far, it's hard to explain. In another video, I'll go over the math of what just one credit card with high interest will do if you're just making the minimum payments over time, and how much money you'll actually end up paying if you just make the minimum payments. But for this video, you just got to take my word for it. Wealthy people avoid high interest credit card debt and personal loan debt and unsecured debt at all costs, and it's something that you've got to do as well. Habit number 6, and this might not seem like a financial based habit, but I can tell you that it is. And this habit is taking ownership of all your problems. Wealthy people, most of them, all the wealthy people that I know, take ownership of their problems. They don't blame other people. And this is a really difficult concept for a lot of people to master. And I know it was for me, and it continues to be for me, because your default thinking, if someone does you wrong or something goes wrong, is to say, well, yeah, part of it was my fault, but that person did this, and if they hadn't done this, then things would have turned out differently. And you might be right, but the key in this concept is to realize that if something bad happens and you take ownership of it, what you're doing is you are moving forward to fix the problem as much as you can control it. You're taking control of the problem. If you blame someone else, you're giving them control of the issue, and then nothing ever gets solved. So if you had a business that went down the drain, or somebody stole some money from you, you had an accountant that stole money from you or something like that, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up here. Yes, it might be that person's fault. They might have done you wrong. But if you don't take ownership of the problem and you don't try to fix it, then you're just going to spend a whole bunch of energy blaming other people instead of trying to solve the problem. So you only start solving problems, financial or otherwise, once you take ownership of it, and then you can move forward with it. So that's something any wealthy person will tell you, that is that they didn't get to where they were by blaming other people. And I can tell you that most wealthy people in this world have experienced some kind of setback where someone might have done them wrong, or something happened to them that wasn't entirely their fault, but they took ownership of the problem anyway, even if it wasn't their fault, even if everyone says it wasn't their fault, even if they didn't believe it wasn't their fault. They said, hey, this is my problem, I need to fix it. They took control of it, because when you take ownership of it, you take control of the problem, and then you can solve it for yourself, and you can solve it the way that you want to. So habit number 6, and this is such an important concept, it's so important, is to take ownership of your problems. And that is something that I would argue all wealthy people do. All right, habit number 7, the last habit. And this is not an exhaustive list. There are probably thousands of things that I could have put in this video, but I chose these 7 because they resonate with me most. And these are the 7 that I've seen the most of in the books that I've read and the interviews that I've watched with wealthy people. And so the last habit is they understand where their money is going. They're not just going out and throwing money around, and they'll be able to tell you pretty accurately where their money has been going and where they plan on having their money going. They have a budget, they have a plan. Now, I'm not saying that they sit down at their computer every day and they track every single dollar, but I will tell you that they have goals and that they know where their resources are allocated, and this helps them make better decisions. So if they start a month and they say, well, this is December, it's Christmas and it's the holidays, I know that I'm going to be spending a little bit more money on gifts this year, a little bit more money on restaurants or travel this year. They understand that, and they understand the consequences that come with that, so that they can adjust accordingly and so that they can change their plans if necessary. So for me, what I do is I use Excel to track where all my money is going, because that makes me feel more comfortable and makes me feel like I'm more in command of where my resources are going, and it alerts me to any kind of inconsistencies or changes, or if there's a charge on one of my accounts that shouldn't be on there, I end up catching it. I sit down weekly on Sunday morning with my Excel worksheet, and I go through all my accounts and my credit cards, and I add everything up just to make sure that everything's all right. And I have an automated process with a lot of formulas there. Everyone has their own system, but The key is that wealthy people have a system for understanding where their money is going. They're not just going out there willy-nilly and throwing money around. Contrary to popular belief, most people who go out there and have no idea where their money's going and they're just spending freely, they might look like they're affluent and look like they have a lot of money, but the research shows that they probably don't, and that they're just fronting like they have a lot. The people who are wealthy understand where their money is going, and they make conscious, deliberate decisions about how they allocate their resources. So habit number 7 is that wealthy people understand where their money is going. Hey everyone, thanks a lot for tuning into this channel. This is my second YouTube channel and I'm having fun with it so far. I do enjoy talking about personal finance and self-development, and I enjoy sharing things that I've learned along the way as I continue to learn more and challenge myself more. So if you have any feedback or any comments you'd like to leave, or any video ideas or questions about anything, please leave them in the comments section below. You can also send an email to me at the address in the About Me part of the YouTube page. I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit the thumbs up button, and also share the channel with your family and your friends or anyone else that you think may benefit from this material. All right, until next time, thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you later. Peace.